Today, I'm joined by Ali Paterson, Editor-in-Chief, or otherwise known as the Grand Fromage of Fintech Finance. Many of you will also know Ali from his appearances on stage at fintech events around the world back when they were a thing. We're going to be chatting through some of Ali's thoughts on the fintech trends coming up in 2021. Let's take it from the top. What are the kind of biggest trends in fintech that are exciting you now and for 2021?
The biggest trend is that there is no roadmap for trends, and by that, a week ago, very few people had heard of what was going on with Reddit and GameStop, and now that's kind of like that's mainstream news, which is insanity. And I personally, I absolutely love that story. I adore that story. It's going to be actually one of our covers, because it is, and there's so many memes. It is that all those little people banding together to take on Wall Street. There's a lot of politics in there. There's a lot of fintech in there. It's just, it's Robin. I think Simon Taylor said it's Robin Hood weaponized to do what Occupy Wall Street failed to actually achieve.
Oh wow, that's a great quote.
So that's I do that a lot. A lot of the time I say something and I'm just parroting someone else because that's what I do. I listen to a lot of other people.
How do you think something like that is going to impact the wider fintech space? Because there's reg tech, questions, there's trading questions, it throws up quite a lot of different areas for consideration, and it's moving 100 miles an hour, right?
I think there's suddenly demand. So I'm a big fan of. We don't have Robin Hood in the UK. Big fan of free trade. Those guys basically spent the entire weekend of when Robin Hood kind of pulled the plug, working out ways that they're able to carry on trading.
Yeah.
These stocks, and I think Adam Dodge, the CEO of Free Trade, even put a thing out saying also fuck hedge fund managers. That's
kind of the point, right? Yeah.
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 So I think the fact that you have got companies like Free Trade that are trying to enable, democratize finance, which is what fintech is kind of all about.
Yeah.
The fact you got people like that, like Adam Dodds doing that and Free Trade doing that, they are going to be hunting away for different reg tech solutions to circumnavigate the status quo, and that's just kind of one of thousands of examples. I imagine that. Well, I think the guys on Reddit are starting to really understand cryptocurrencies as well. So I think that can be. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame. That could definitely be weaponized in a very anti-establishment, anti-Wall Street kind of way.
Yeah, it's like, the old phrase needs must. The clips that I've seen of the Reddit community are like, well, we're not the kind of community to sit on our hands and wait for somebody to go, well, the pandemic's over, guys, life's back to normal, and have taken it forward. And it is that kind of collaboration 3.0, isn't it? That they've just kind of gone, well, why wait for permission? This is an open free market, right?
Yeah, and the research that's been done on there, I was flipping through, first of all, incredible amount of memes, like top quality fintech memes. But like some of the research that was done was uncovering, hang on a second, GameStop is shorted 130%.
Yeah.
So it's kind of they realized that, and then they were like, well, let's focus on this particular stock there. There was a lot of that kind of stuff happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was very, it's not just an anarchist. It's well thought out. It's researched. It's tested. It's okay. This will be the best method, and it's worked for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a Robin Hood mentality that they're now talking about, transferring to other ailing businesses to give them a kind of a shot in the arm. I don't know whether we should be using the phrase "shot in the arm" at the moment, or whether it's a little bit too sensitive. But I think that's a really interesting one, and it will move at the speed of light. What else is on your radar at the moment? I mean, I know you said there's no roadmap, right? So we could be having a totally different conversation in a month's time. I won't hold you to this, but
I think I emailed you beforehand saying, this has all changed in the last week. It's literally changed in the last day. I was reading Isabel Woodford from Sifted's piece around Lanistar this morning.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a few organizations like that kind of come to light, not to the same kind of scale that we saw last year with Wirecard.
Yeah.
But Lanistar, I think, seems to be in a bit of trouble. You always hear rumblings around, Monzo's in trouble with financing or yada yada yada. You always hear things like that. I think we may start to see some of those come to fruition, and it may be in ways unexpected. Like in the
Dot
case
dot
of
dot. I was going to
yeah,
say, like
like in the
what?
case of Lanistar, it was what? Hang on a second. So you haven't even got the regulation, and you're not paying people, or you're paying people late in Macedonia. I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, totally. And what do you think that kind of, because I guess it's summed up in uncertainty, right? Like you said, there's rumblings and rumors, and the climate's tough. What do you think again that will mean for fintech more broadly? Do you think there'll be a trust issue? Do you think there'll be an innovation issue to answer the troubles that are happening? What do you think might kind of come out of that?
I don't think so much there will be a trust issue. I think there'll be a lot of education.
Mm,
I think more people today now understand the difference between a bank and a prepaid card, which
yeah.
I compared to say 10 years ago, no, Joe Public didn't know. I think there's a lot more education around that there.
Mm,
The more financial education, the better.
mm,
In terms of innovation, yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, Wirecard has definitely fueled a lot of innovation from last year.
yeah.
Another weekend of the guys at Imagine Curve, their weekend when Wirecard went, they turned that around incredibly. So I think that kind of that push, yeah. I mean, out of fire comes Phoenix, or whatever the expression is. You know the sentiment.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, in innovation, I think we've seen, you know, the payment space, for example, over the last kind of 12 months is just, I know that's a lot of people are talking about that as a potentially big continued trend for one of those behaviors that will really stick post pandemic when we're all kind of back out and back in real shops as well. Is payment something that you think is kind of a key space to watch?
100%, and not just in the UK. Um, for example, in Nigeria, you've got 100 million people without a bank account
Yeah,
who rely solely on cash. And
yeah,
it's very, very easy to go around and say, look, cash is obviously decreasing. The percentage of cash in the wallet is decreasing, and it is. I do not think that you can completely eradicate cash without giving a suitable replacement and a suitable amount of education,
yeah,
and to be able to get those kind of the people, not so much on the fringes, but there's so many different kind of cases. I don't think it would be cost effective to actually remove cash at the moment.
yeah.
But on the flip side, when you've got somewhere like Nigeria with 100 million people without a bank account, I mean, who are reliant on cash, that's a huge, huge opportunity. And so, in terms of payments, if you can get these people using digital payments, the likes of like Kuda Bank out in Nigeria,
Yeah.
um, that is a big, big market. And not only do the big difference between digital payments and the likes of cash, and why payments is important, is digital payments gives a digital record of your transactions, and if you have that record, you have a credit rating, and if you have a credit rating, you can get a loan.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing for me around payments in the future. There's going to be a lot more data, which means a lot more ability to make smart lending decisions.
And do you see, you mentioned Nigeria there, do you see innovation, is it globally agnostic, as it were? Is it coming from anywhere, really? Not just maybe led by the big legacy banks doing, investing in their thing, but, out of countries where there's such a need for innovation that could then go on to a global scale and be used, in countries with similar challenges.
1,000%, 1,000%. I always say that fintech was born in Africa.
Yeah.
M-Pesa. I think it's kind of
Yeah.
the kind of, there's other examples, but M-Pesa is such a perfect example there. Equally, and it's weird thinking back to it now, but think of China's economy pre Alipay, pre QR code. So I think the digital payments that have emerged from there, you wouldn't have, 20, 30 years ago, you wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what about the role of, you mentioned cryptocurrency just before. What about cryptocurrency this year? I think one Bitcoin's currently worth about $34,000. It goes up, it goes down. What does 2021 hold for that? Is it the ever questioning time of when it might become, mainstream? What do you think?
I'm expecting someone from my team to take whatever I say now and play it back to me in a year's time, because I'm like to be incredibly wrong. I have no idea. I think anyone saying they have the idea that they know, um, either is lying or they are actually secretly Santoshi holding a huge amount of Bitcoin that can influence the
Yeah, for
market.
sure.
Um, so I actually I have very little idea. It's certainly being pushed again and again into the public consciousness.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a cliche to say it, but the technology behind it, i.e., blockchain, yeah, that there is a lot of opportunity there. In fact, my 5-year-old actually got him. I think Chris Skinner's kids got the same book, the Blockchain for Dummies book, or Blockchain for Babies book.
Oh,
The
brilliant.
opportunity there with things like voting, which obviously is quite polarizing at the moment, where you have that irrefutable ledger. I think some of the opportunities there we will see, as again blockchain and Bitcoin get pushed more and more into the public consciousness.
Yeah, my son was asking me, my 11-year-old was asking me how long it would take the average computer to mine 1 Bitcoin over the weekend, and I didn't hold the answer, and nor did Siri. So maybe I need the blockchain for dummies or babies
Yes.
book as well. Maybe it can explain it to me. Brilliant. On the
Just on that,
Go on.
I did want to throw another thing there as well, which is the combination of Bitcoin being pushed into the public spotlight, WhatsApp
Yeah,
now passing its data on,
yeah,
and what's happened recently with Wall Street bets. I
yeah.
think that at some point, if not this year, maybe next year, we're going to see a very mainstream ICO instead of an IPO. Um,
Right.
Rumorville Signal, because they've
Okay.
done very well recently. They were working on Ton, which was their own initial ICO, but they've shelved it about 2 years ago, and they're potentially from Rumorville looking to do an ICO this year, which would be a really it would combine Bitcoin, Wall Street bets, and of course what happened with WhatsApp all in one fell swoop.
And so suddenly the ICO is mainstream, and yeah, it's a really interesting confluence of happenings, isn't it? And where that might take us. Yeah, that's an interesting one to watch. We'll have to come back and talk about this time next year as well, and see whether it happened.